Ghosts of the night, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Brian Christopher Koberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Brian Koberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Phil J. Pride, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
Just like every other podcast. What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the DT Show. I'm Daniel, and today we're getting back into the Tepe case with the now accused Michael Mckee, former husband of Monique Tepe, who is alleged to have taken the lives of Spencer Tepe and Monique Tepe in the early morning hours. I believe it was December 30th, 2025. Sad case, a horrific case of, in my opinion, somebody who, this was a calculated, thing. I think he put a lot of effort and thought into this. And some charges have been brought up that I think are going to kind of play into what I've been thinking. And also, it sounds like they found the murder weapon. I don't think it's conclusive at this point, meaning I don't think the ballistics have came back yet, but it does appear that they found a weapon that matches probably what they would have expected, fired the rounds in the shell casings that they found. And so we're going to get into all that. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. If you want to support the channel, we got a QR code right here in the corner. Check that out. That's to donate to the PayPal. If you guys want to do that, I'd appreciate that. But and I want to say also thank you to the mods, our subscribers, our viewers. Please hit the like and subscribe button. We're trying to hit 55,000 subscribers. I'd appreciate it if you guys help me get there. Without further ado, let's get into it. I'm a little rusty. It's been a few days since I've done this. I took a couple days off. I went out on a trip to Pennsylvania, to Pittsburgh out there, and unfortunate stuff happened. My team lost. We're outside. We're out of the playoffs now. It is what it is, but hopefully next year will be a better year. It's going to be a lot of changes for my team, so we'll see what happens. For those that are wondering, I am a Steelers fan, and so we'll see what happens next year. I'm excited for the new things to come. All right, so let's break it down. Let's look at this. Let's take some of these things one step at a time. Now, I've read the headlines. I've seen a few things, but I haven't read everything. You guys know if it's not highlighted, I really haven't read into it. And so you're going to get my reaction and my thought process as we go along through this. One of the things I want to touch back on was the probable cause affidavit. And the reason behind that is because before the information about the gun coming out, I'd seen, some people that were talking like, is there enough evidence? All they have is the vehicle driving around. Some of the same stuff that we heard those that were, defending Brian Koberger per se. And I was like, I get it. I understand, this is a fairly small probable cause affidavit, especially compared to what was put out there for Brian Koberger. 19 pages versus, I think, 2-3 paragraphs of that. I think it's right here, one paragraph really about what happened and why they believe they got their person. Now, this is something that I would have expected out of the Brian Koberger case. In fact, I had mentioned it multiple times that I was surprised about the length of the probable cause affidavit. Those that are watching this for the first time or watching me for the first time, a little bit of background on me. I'm ex-law enforcement, so a little bit familiar with probable cause affidavits and things of that nature. And so this one just had the bare minimum, and I felt like there's probably going to be a lot more information. And, when this entire situation occurred, the double homicide, I immediately thought that, based on, we didn't see a vehicle pull right up to the home. We saw a person, or we found out that there was a person that was walking up to the back. We knew that there was cameras up front. I wondered if this person had cased out the area. I wondered if this was a calculated type of offense, and I believe we're going to end up finding out that that's the case. So let's go back to the probable cause affidavit. This says here Columbus Police Homicide Unit Team 2 was advised, responded, and initiated an investigation. And this is, after they've discovered the bodies. During the subsequent investigation, detectives were able to identify a suspect through neighborhood video surveillance. The suspect was tracked to a vehicle which arrived just prior to the homicides and left shortly after the homicides. Detectives were also able to identify the vehicle further and link it to Michael Mckee. Detectives located the vehicle in Rockford, Illinois, and found evidence of Mckee in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. So, to me, this means that there's more than just the fact that he, to me, that's, although it's one paragraph, there's a lot to be taken out of it. Yeah, they were able to track it back to his car. Now, they said it's his car, not a vehicle that matched his car, not a vehicle that looks like his car, his car. So I wonder if there's a license plate. I wonder if there's something, that they have, especially if they have it on one of these cameras from the police units, one of these flock cameras, I think is what they call. And so his car tells me they somehow are able to determine it's his. They know he was in possession of his car before and after the murders. It tells me they have surveillance of him in his car, probably leaving his residence or leaving the residence or leaving the area from his residence and returning. Now, for it to have been a meaningful event and something that was not exculpatory per se, when he left and returned must have been around the time or after the time that it wouldn't be outside of the murders, meaning he didn't leave, because I think it's going to take, I'm not sure what's the distance there, but it's going to take some time to travel from Illinois to Ohio. And so it's not like he left, Illinois at 3:30 in the morning and then the murders happened at 3:52 a.m. Well, hey, it's almost impossible, virtually impossible for him to be in those two places at the same time. So they must have some sort of video and surveillance of him leaving and returning, and it still account for the time it took for the distance to travel and to commit the crime. So that's the other thing that they have out of this. The other thing that I'm assuming that they have is they're probably going to have a lot of camera footage of his vehicle traveling all the way across there. I wonder if there's any toll roads. I'm not familiar with the area. But in fact, I'll Google search that here in a second. Yeah, let's see. How many toll roads are there? Toll roads between, where was he from again? It was Rockford, Illinois. Illinois and Columbus, Ohio. Let's see what happens. Yes, you encountered toll roads traveling primarily on I-90 East and then on Ohio Turnpike, 80 and I-90, which are toll selected in Indiana and Ohio, requiring payments via Pass, Easy Pass, or Cash Credit. Now, sure, maybe he was able to get around those type of things. But I'm sure there's going to be other cameras that are out there that are going to also capture his movement. But if he went through a toll road, if he ended up, in fact, going through a toll road, that might also be able to show more evidence, of him inside the vehicle, in the car. Because that's one of the things that it says. It shows evidence of him in possession of the vehicle prior to and after the homicides. So if he's driving through a toll road, and they got a picture of him, front license plate in the car, picture of him inside of it, I think he's pretty Dunskies at this point. Now you got a weapon. If the ballistics match, this is a slam dunk case. There's, in my opinion, this guy has very little movement here. Let's see. And they found the vehicle in his possession prior to and after the homicide. So to me, I think there's a lot here, just to kind of, pull out from just one paragraph of the information and the evidence that they do have. But let's see what else they may have here. Weapon found on the property of Illinois surgeon accused of killing ex-wife, and Ohio dentist, police say. A weapon linked to the deaths of the Ohio dentist and his wife was found at the property of the woman's ex-husband and Illinois surgeon charged in the fatal shooting, police said Wednesday. After his arrest, multiple firearms were seized from the property of Michael Mckee, one of which police think is the murder weapon. Columbus Police Chief Elaine Bryant told NBC News Mckee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe, 39, who was found dead with her 37-year-old husband, Spencer Tepe, last month at their Columbus home. He was arrested 400 miles from the crime scene Saturday and charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder. That's quite a bit of a distance. That's quite a bit of a distance. Now, that should say something. You know, for those that think that maybe perhaps this was like a crime of passion, which it's not. In fact, we'll move this over to this article here, which indicates that Michael Mckee hit with upgraded counts of murder charges hours before court appearance. So this goes on to say that charges against the man accused of murdering his ex-wife and her new husband, a prominent Ohio dentist, were upgraded Monday, hours before his scheduled court hearing in Illinois. Michael David Mckee, 39, is now charged with 2 counts of aggravated murder over his alleged killings of Monique and Spencer Tepe, in their Columbus home. Now, I went and just kind of, Google search what would constitute aggravated murder in Ohio, and it's under Ohio Revised Code 2903.01, is a severe felony for purposefully causing someone's death with prior calculation, especially during the felonies like kidnapping or rape, and against other specific victims like children under the age of 13, police officers. Carry severe penalties, including life imprisonment with or without parole, and the death penalty, pending on specific circumstances and jury decisions, making it more serious than standard murder. And basically, the big part about this is the calculation, the prior calculation, and design. So it's just the premeditated aspect with the calculation aspect. Now, this comes just before he was, I think it was before his arraignment. I think it's what it said. Right before his appearance. And so what does this say? What does this tell you? What does this tell me? Put in the comment section, pause this right now. I want to hear what you guys think. You guys in the live chat too. Let me pull up the comments. What do you guys think this means? What do you think they found? To me, what I think they found is they got his phone, and they probably found searches for Miss Tepe. They probably found, Google searches, maps, things of that nature. Maybe even found maps in his vehicle, things like that. But evidence of planning and calculation, which, like I said before, when this first occurred, I was like, the fact that the person didn't just drive up, the fact that the house wasn't ransacked, the fact that the person's, their bodies were found in their home tells me, in their bedroom, near their bed, tells me that they were surprised. This person made entry and went straight in there. That was the purpose. I thought it was very calculated, to the point where I thought that maybe perhaps this was maybe another Bryan Kohberger type of person. And the only reason I thought that was because when you have somebody, who's lost their lives in the manner like this, the first person law enforcement are going to look at are the exes. And so the ex-husband came up, and I was like, all right, they're going to look at him. They're going to go question him. They're going to ask him, where were you? And it's not going to be very difficult to figure out if he's responsible, especially if he lives 400 miles away. That's going to make it really easy to figure out whether or not he had the capabilities of getting there back and forth and all these other things. And obviously, it appears that all that information is being used against him. However, it took some time for an arrest. Now, one of the things that I didn't account for, and it was my mistake, was that it was around the holidays. And so getting warrants and things of that nature sometimes could take some time. It was around New Year's. And so, when I had Elena Smith from Crime Scene Collective on, and she asked me, what do I think happened? I said, I think that this is a very calculated crime. I think somebody came in here with this intention. I'm leaning away towards it's being somebody that they know the longer it takes. And she asked me, how long do you think it would take before, you would say, all right, it's definitely somebody who's outside of the circle, outside of somebody that they know. And I was like, about 4 weeks. And so this arrest happened within that. I think it happened within 2 weeks. So I was a little bit surprised about the length of time, but not surprised about the amount of evidence that they have against him, because for this person to have committed this crime and to travel that far in his vehicle obviously says a lot. And so there's a lot apparently that was going on, I guess, in this guy's life. Shortly before this, he was getting sued for some practice type of stuff, I believe. Um, you know, I just wonder if he just kind of blames like his life going downhill with maybe perhaps the divorce. It started with the divorce, started then this, then that, and then he's jealous of what her life has become and how happy she is, and he goes out and commits an unthinkable crime. Now he still has the weapon. That says a lot to me too. A couple of things. I believe they arrested him at Chick-fil-A. Let me pull up this article real quick that I had sent to me from Shay. So thank you, Shay, for sending this to me. It says in a statement, OSF Healthcare said is cooperating with authorities and directed all questions to law enforcement. Authorities confirmed that the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives took Mckee into custody Saturday in Rockford. The agency said he was arrested without incident just after 9:30 a.m. at a Chick-fil-A. With extradition waived, Columbus police must now decide how to transport Mckee back to Franklin County. So he was arrested in a restaurant. So they probably were watching him and took him without incident there. Now, I wonder, him still having the gun with him, if with his life kind of falling to pieces, if he had like these suicidal ideations where he wanted to take his own life, but at the same time also maybe perhaps wanted to do, take some folks with him. And, I think maybe perhaps this arrest at Chick-fil-A probably prevented him from carrying out that, if that's it. And the other possibility of him still carrying the gun with him is it's a memento, so to speak. Maybe he really did become like these psychopathic type of persons, like a Brian Koberger, who would take and keep a memento, something to remember the crime about. This guy is a doctor, so he's not stupid. We would think that he would have discarded the weapon and thrown it away. You would assume that at some point that he would have thought that they're going to come knocking on his door and asking him questions. He's only the ex-husband, although it'd been some time since they've been divorced. If somebody's ex dies out of mysterious reasoning, or in this situation from the hands of another that is unknown at the time, they're definitely going to come knocking at your door just to cross the T and dot the I. You know what I'm saying? And so for him to still maintain possession of that weapon, to me, says a couple of different things. One, he was, I wonder if they came knocking at his door at his apartment and he had that weapon with him, if this would have had a different ending, is basically what I'm trying to say. And I think that may have been why he kept the weapon with him. Apparently it was found, I think maybe in his vehicle. So which is a good thing that it was in his vehicle. Let's see. And I know some folks are pointing out that he may have been looking at their wedding video. That's possible too. That's very possible as well. We got Copper Girl 12 coming in with the newest membership. Thank you so much. It showed up twice, but thank you. Appreciate it. All right, let's go back to the document. So weapons found. Let's go back here. I haven't read all this. Maybe it's going to tell us about it being at Chick-fil-A after all. A weapon linked to the deaths in the of an Ohio dentist and his wife was found at the property of the woman's ex-husband. After the arrest, multiple firearms were seized from the property of Michael Mckee. Now, so it was from his property, so not in his car. One of which was police think is the murder weapon. Mckee is the ex-husband of Monique Tepe, 39, who was found dead with her 37-year-old husband, Spencer Tepe. He was arrested 400 miles away from the crime scene. Brian said she could not comment on the motive. What we can say is that this was a targeted attack, Brian said. This was a domestic violence attack. Columbus police did not have previous reports or calls involving the ex-husband at the Tepe's home, which the couple moved into in 2020, Brian said. Mckee, 39, and Monique Tepe married in 2015 and divorced because of incompatibility. 2 years later, after they were already living separately, records show, the family members said that they lived together for only 7 months and alleged that Mckee was emotionally abusive. It was so impactful that she had to leave the relationship so abruptly to get out of it because she was so worried. She said Rob Mesle, Spencer Tepe's brother-in-law. Brian said McKee's vehicle was seen on security video near the Tepe's home just before the murders. Police have said that there are no signs of forced entry at the house. Officials have not provided details about how Mckee entered his ex-wife's home. This begins such an ongoing and very fluid investigation. It's really important for us to make sure that we share the things that aren't going to compromise the case. So what does that mean? That means they have a lot more information that they just don't want to say or put out there yet. This is probably a very, very strong case against Mckee. You know, I know that some folks might see the fact that it's a one-paragraph affidavit. They're not coming out with a lot of information and get this false pretense that this is a weak case. I doubt it. I extremely doubt that. I think this is going to be a very strong case against Mr. Mckee. I wouldn't be surprised if he takes a plea deal. Let's see. The couple were discovered deceased in their Columbus home on December 30th after worries and friends and colleagues called authorities. Oh, and that's the other thing. So a lot of people were asking, like, how did they know that the time of death was at 3:53 p.m., I believe, is when I think that's what the probable cause affidavit said. How do they know? Well, we got video, right? We got video of him walking in the alley. If any of that video, and there's also a video out front too, kind of pointing at the direction, the police camera. If there's audio to any of that footage, it's going to hear the fires, the shots being fired. Kind of like in the Brian Koberger case, how we could hear all the stuff that was going on in the house, kind of muffled and things of that nature from 50 feet away. Well, those cameras weren't very far away from where the residence was. So I wouldn't be surprised if that happens. Depending on which bedroom it was, that camera from across the street may have captured the flash bangs, the flash from the gun going off. And that may be even captured on camera from across the street. So there's a numerous amount of ways. I don't think anybody woke up, or I don't think law enforcement used that specific time frame unless they had some sort of video or audio that kind of showed or displayed that was happening. For instance, I don't think anybody woke up in the middle of the night and said, "Oh, I heard gunshots and I think I looked at my phone and it was 3:52." The reason behind that is just because they mean that's going off of somebody's memory. Memory isn't always the best, even if they looked at their phone and things like that. You would definitely see something more like approximately 4 a.m. Something to that effect, or approximately 3:50. I don't think you'd come with a specific time frame. The fact that it comes with a specific 3:52, I think, is what it is. I think the camera from across the street, the police camera, probably captured the flash from the gun going off. It was nighttime. It was dark. You probably could see that against the curtains on the camera. And if there, like I said, and if there's audio from any of the cameras that are nearby and that are playing, is most likely how they were able to deduce the time frame. Let's see. This goes on to say a friend of Spencer Tepe's called 911 after he stopped by the Tepe's home to check on him and found him lying next to his bed in a puddle of blood. The couple's otherwise unharmed children could be heard crying in the background. Yeah, that was sad. And the crazy thing is, apparently law enforcement went to like the wrong house. And yeah, Apple Watch. Yeah, it could have been the Apple Watch too. That could have been if one of them was wearing an Apple Watch. But crazy. And this one goes back to say that they found the weapon and that they revealed emotional abuse. Let's see. Revelation comes as Monique's brother-in-law said her ex-husband Mckee used to emotionally abuse during their short-lived marriage. Mckee's vehicle was seen very close to the Tepe's home around the time of the murders. Multiple weapons were taken in. Let's see. I want to see if there's anything new here. I do have, let's see, I got a video. Let me pull that up real quick. So I'm going to pull this up. Give me one sec. And this is the guy. He's chained up. I'm sure his feet are chained, which is why he's walking kind of funny. I was trying to see if I can get a grasp of his, like if he had like a gait. But he's kind of wobbling around, but I think that's because he's probably his ankles probably shackled. Taller guy.
Third quarter, the defendant is present in custody.
Your name, sir, for the record? Michael Mckee. Have you had a chance to speak with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
What's your position in this?
Yes, at this time, Your Honor, on behalf of Mr. Mckee, I will assert his right to counsel. I will assert his right to remain silent. And Mr. Mckee believes that the most expeditious manner in which he may defend himself against the charges pending in Ohio and to plead not guilty would be to waive his right to an extradition hearing and to have a governor's warrant and to agree to his immediate transportation to Ohio.
Understood, thank you. We will set this matter then for 2 o'clock on Monday. For status on the transfer.
Thank you.
Anything else we can do today?
Not for this one.
Thank you, Kirk. Thanks, everyone.
I want to play it again so we can hear his voice a little bit.
Alexander. Third quarter, the defendant is present in custody.
Your name, sir, for the record? Michael Mckee. Have you had a chance to speak with him?
Yes, Your Honor.
So all he says is Michael Mckee, which is his name. Tall dude, taller than everybody else that's around him. You know, that was one of the things that I noticed about the guy when he was walking behind the vehicle on the surveillance camera was that it appeared to be a taller individual. You know, I think he's like 6'1". He was walking kind of funny. I don't know if he has that walk in, I guess, real life. I mean, not real life, but I don't know if he was trying to, if that was an act, like if he knew that the camera was there. I noticed that he puts his head down, passes the camera, and then picks his head up. So if he knew and was aware of the camera being there, I wonder if that's why he was walking kind of weird, or that could be just his normal walk. You know, so one or the other. But if it was something that he was trying to do to kind of throw off law enforcement or throw off investigators, knowing that they're going to have a camera of him walking up there. Video of him walking up, and he tried to make something look like it was there. That wasn't. Again, that goes to the premeditation aspect and why the aggravated murder charge enhancement. To go to that much thought to do that, to look down, to make sure the camera don't capture you, and to change your gait. I wonder what else they found on his phone. I wonder if he'd been Google searching things on how to covertly get in and around the neighborhood. I wonder if he looked at other criminals who may have committed crimes. And try to come up with something. I mean, that was one of the things that I was wondering about when it came to this case, because it seems so calculated, in my opinion. It seemed extremely calculated. Let's see, when was this? And that was from a day ago. And so at this point, I'll answer some of your questions. Let's bring them up and put a couple of stars so I know that you guys are talking to me, and we'll answer your questions at this point. Anyone think he's going to throw in the towel and plead guilty? I think he is. I think there's too much evidence against them. I mean, we don't have it all right now, but I'm sure as it comes in, as it trickles in, we're going to find out quite a bit. And I think what we're going to find out is it's going to be even more damning. For them to, also be pulling the, the, what's it called? The calculation and stuff, and enhancing the charge tells me that they got some pretty strong evidence to prove that this guy was, that he had a lot of planning involved in his crime, very much premeditated. I mean, the fact that he drove 4 hours, right? 400 miles. I mean, I mean, I don't know how many hours that's going to take. I know it's more than 4 hours, that's for sure. But that's probably more than a day to get there. And so where did he stay? Where did he, is there going to be a trail of that? I think there is. And I think that's what's going to capture him more so than anything else. And when you think about those things, you think about the shell casings being left behind. You think about the distance that he traveled, him keeping the gun on his property. Makes me really wonder: did he, did he not care? Was this something that he thought he was going to get caught, and his life was not going to be very much longer than after that? I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. So put a couple stars so I know you're talking to me, guys. And I think somebody had asked, has any of his family members spoken out? That's a good question. I know that there's been some of his friends who have. I think a neighbor has, saying that they were surprised because they spoke to him and didn't know that he was that kind of person. Crazy stuff. I know he played, I think he played football and stuff too. And I think he had a pretty good, high school and I think even college career. He's taller than 6'1". He looks like it. But I think the average height of everybody, of a man, is like 5'9" now, 5'9" or 5'8". So at 6'1", that's a few inches taller than the average person or the average male. I personally I'm not 6'1". I'm just shy of 6 foot. So I'm a little bit taller than most, but yeah, this guy would be taller than me too. I heard no credit time served counts while waiting for extradition. That's possible. Do you think he's been, hold on, give me 1 second. I'm going to put this on the bigger screen. It's closer. There it is. Do you think he's been brooding the whole time, or do you think something was activated in him recently? Well, he did have a lot of stuff that was going on in him recently. I think that this guy, though, has probably been keeping an eye on the Tepes. And I think this has not been something that he just kind of snapped and decided to do. Um, I think and again, I don't know all the evidence or anything like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if we find out that his searches and stuff, that he's been keeping tabs and visiting her Facebook or whatever the case through burner accounts, her Instagram, her social medias, her YouTube. I think there was a wedding video. Wouldn't be surprised if we're going to find out that he was all over that throughout this entire time. Pretty sure they have the weapon. Do you agree? I think it's most likely. It sounds like they do. Now, could he just have a weapon that is? Could he have had two of them? Right, got rid of one, kept one, just in case they come looking, so that the ballistics don't match. Say, hey, no, that's my gun. I don't think so. I think it's going to end up being the gun, but it hasn't been confirmed 100% yet. Has it been confirmed? Has it been said that he cut off all of his family, all the ties with his family is adopted? I've been reading that he was adopted, or somebody said he was. I don't know how true it is. Not really a question, but their address was 1411 4th Street, and the cop went to 1417 Summit. I'd even mix those up. That's a good question. I wonder where 1417 Summit is. I need to look at a map. Because, like, for instance, I was just in Pittsburgh, and the streets there are confusing. Sometimes, they'll have streets that here in Texas are alleys. They're not streets, but they're considered streets. They have their street names and stuff like that. And so it gets a little confusing sometimes. I wonder, but that's no excuse for this guy. I was new there. This guy works there. He's a police officer. He's supposed to know better. But I wonder if he went to an alley thinking it was the residence, or vice versa. I wonder how far away it is. But yeah, no excuse. That's not an excuse. He should have gone to the right spot. I have no idea how they confused the two. None. 7 hours each way. There we go. Thank you, Kel. So you can make it in one day. You can make it in a day there and back. That's straight driving. I mean, you would anticipate him needing to stop somewhere, but let's see. What are you talking about? Am I biased in the case because I spoke to Daniel? There you go. Let's see. And do you think he's locked the kids in the room? Oh, gosh. Do I think he locked the kids in the room? I don't know. I think he may have I think he was just looking for her. A baby monitor could show a lot. That's true too. A baby monitor could. If it's one of those that is connected to like the cloud and saves and things of that nature, 100%. He's cooked. Why do these idiots keep taking their own cars and keep the weapon? Well, because if they were smart, they wouldn't be committing crimes like this, right? But you have some folks who think that they're smarter than everybody, and Brian Koberger, this guy probably, and sometimes when you're thinking about some of the major problems, like in the Brian Koberger case, he was wiping all his stuff back and forth, right, wiping it clean, worried about certain things that were going to capture him. And don't get me wrong, had he not left the knife sheath, he probably would have gotten away with it. But because of so many of these things that I think he was hyper focused on, he probably looked past some of the smaller details. Now, in this scenario, I wonder if the guy, it seems calculated, like getting in, going, but keeping the vehicle or keeping the weapon, especially, that kind of screams to me that maybe he had he had another means to the end here, in my opinion. Let's see. The body cam is out from the officer that arrested him. Let me see if I can find it. Yeah, thank you for letting me know that. Is that on YouTube? Let me see if I can find it. Okay. Michael Key arrest body cam. I think you're right. Let me oh wait, never mind. No, it's just a different one. I was like, I think you're right. No, it's not it. The one I found is I-640 shooting. Let me see if I can find it here. Give me a second. If somebody does have it, please email that to me real quick. Yeah, let me know. The body cam is out from the officer. Oh, of them going to the wrong house. My bad. I thought you were talking about Michael McKee's arrest. I was like, holy smokes. Yeah, I saw that. He was whistling, walking up there. Yeah, the guy probably seems like feels like a big idiot. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying he is one. I'm not saying that at all. Everybody makes mistakes. You know what I mean? And his mistake cost a lot of people, a few people that were really close to the Tepes, a traumatic experience that they're never going to unsee, going into that house and a few more hours. I think it'll make another hour that those kids had to wait to get help. And so that's what his mistake cost. I don't think it's going to cost the case. I don't think it's going to cost anything else other than that. Probably maybe a paycheck or two of his. I wouldn't be surprised. Or at least, some sort of time at work at the very least. But yeah. Spencer's brother-in-law said that he first met Monique in 2018, which was only 1 year after her divorce with Mckee. Do you think part of his anger was because she moved on so quickly? I mean, it could be. I think that if you have a guy like this who's holding on to a grudge for this long, I think the mere fact that she left him is probably driving him up the wall, right? And then you add that on top of meeting somebody. Now, he's a vascular surgeon. Now, I'm going to assume he's a narcissist. Now, that's just my assumption. I'm not a doctor at all whatsoever. But I would assume a narcissist, it would be a person that could carry a grudge like this for this many years, to have not moved on, right? To have committed a crime like this after so long. If that's the case, and what it kind of sounds like, I mean, this guy probably couldn't take the fact that she left, and then the fact that she married somebody else, and then it's somebody who's a dentist, right? To him, he's a surgeon. She married a dentist. How could you, he's probably like, how could you leave me? I'm a doctor. I'm a vascular surgeon, and you're leaving me for a dentist. And, I think that could probably add it to it. And then there's kids. I wonder if he and her talked about kids. Now, he's all about himself. If he's a narcissist, well, he probably didn't care about that aspect, which is probably why he didn't do anything to the kids, right? So I don't think them having kids is like something where he was like, oh man, I wanted kids and you had kids with somebody else. I don't think that was part of it. Which is, like I said, why they probably are alive. But what he did take away was what, he wanted, which was, a marriage, her. And he took away, that away from them. And I hope this guy gets what he deserves. I really do. But I think that there was more than just, like had Monique, I don't think like had Monique waited another year or 2 years to meet somebody and then get married, that the outcome would have been different. I probably would suspect that had Monique not met somebody, this guy was probably going to be showing up, knocking on the door, acting all crazy, doing a bunch of other things. I think Spencer being involved probably held him at bay, which is why he had to cowardly enter in the middle of the night to do what he did, and just kind of like what, was said about Brian Koberger in one of his final hearings, that, you had to do it like a coward in the middle of the night with a gun, right? So, well, in this situation with a gun. And so, couldn't stand up to him. So I think that relationship probably kept him at bay from contacting her and things like that, which I wouldn't be surprised if he did. I wouldn't be surprised if she had like anonymous phone calls or random friend requests from profiles that she didn't recognize, things like that. That's probably all him. If she had any of that. I don't know that for a fact. It's just me kind of spitballing based on, the type of person that this guy most likely is if he committed this crime. Again, everybody is innocent until proven guilty. I strongly suspect that there's going to be a lot of evidence here. Now, if we go through it and that evidence doesn't pop up, like, that evidence don't exist that I'm expecting, then we'll have that conversation, right? But as of now, it appears that there's going to be a pretty strong case against this dude. Let's see. Hey, Sirius, how's it going? Thank you. Did they ever say the dog was in with the kids? That's a good question. I have no idea where the dog was. None whatsoever. It seemed like his life was in a spiral too, similar to BK. I believe that was the case too. No, the body cam of the officer. Yeah, I realized that. I apologize. I was all looking for it. I got confused. I even get confused sometimes, guys. Did they issue a gag order on this case? Not that I'm aware of. Not that I'm aware of at this point. I don't think so. Which is why they've come out forward talking about they believe that they have the murder weapon. I don't think they've had a gag order. I just think they've got they don't got any loose lips there with the Columbus Police Department. Which kudos to them, not getting information out like rapid fire and things turning into speculation or things turning into conspiracy. So far, I think they've done a really good job. Thank you. I appreciate that. He felt like the dentist was below. I'm pretty sure that's what he felt like. And I think that probably drove him as well. If you hit DT's picture below the thumbnail, it'll take you to, oh yeah. Yep. So sorry, guys. There are two streams going on. I probably should say this more often. There are two streams going on. We have one with is the landscape view and then one for the portrait view. I probably did that backwards. But what it is so YouTube's allowing us to do multiple streams on different types of formats. And so if you go to the channel and you hit live, you'll see that there's two of them. As Sirius says, the one without the phone and the in the title is the one that has the original just regular view. And so we have a community that does watch off of a cell phone, and they prefer the longer view, kind of like the TikTok view, I would say. And so it's broadcasting a TikTok view and a landscape view like a YouTube normal video would. So it is in two places. I probably should have brought that up way earlier. I apologize that I didn't. But thank you, Sirius, for pointing that out. Let's see. Check my email. All right, I'll check my email. I got the email. All right, I got two things. I have not read it, but I'm going to bring them up. Just give me a second. Okay. I know the suspense. All right. So this is from True Crime Mama. It says diabolical source tells me that Mike Mckee worked on December 29th and he had a cot reserved at a hospital to spend the night that evening. That evening before the morning of the Tepe's murders, which happened early in the morning hours of December 30th. The source stated that he left his cell phone on the cot room that night, then allegedly left the hospital, drove to Columbus, murdered the Spencer and Monique before driving right back to the hospital, 14-hour round trip, clocking in at 11 a.m. on December 30th. Freaking knew it. I told you guys that he left his phone somewhere. I thought it was at his house. But I told you guys that he left his phone somewhere. That this was super calculated and that we're going to find out a lot. I'm telling you that footsteps that he was making, he did that on purpose. This guy probably watched a lot of this true crime stuff. I wouldn't be surprised if he watched some of these, Brian Koberger channels and, to try to see, how he got caught type of thing. I knew that was the case. Let's see. According to this source, federal authorities contacted the hospital on 1-8 and 1-9. This is the reason why it took a long time too, is because he had his phone there to get information about his whereabouts. The source tells me that on 1-8, when the hospital was contacted, Mckee was in surgery operating on a patient. The coincidences with the relative who told me their family member had 10-hour surgery performed by Mckee on 1-8, then was arrested on Saturday, January 10th at a Chick-fil-A in Rockford. I do my best to vet my sources' information before sharing, but all this information is alleged. Mckee has been charged with 2 counts of aggravated premeditated murder. Authorities firmly believe they have the correct person charged, but all suspects are innocent until proven guilty. Again, I told you guys, this guy seemed like this was super calculated. Felt like this guy went through a lot of planning, and it seems like I was coming up right on this one. Let's see, there's more to this. Why was Dr. Michael Mckee arrested by ATF? According to a source who spoke to me, the condition of the anonymity, Dr. Michael Mckee was arrested by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives after allegedly providing false information on a required federal firearm purchase form. A source says that Mckee is accused of lying about his residence address when completing the ATF paperwork while purchasing a handgun in Las Vegas. The information provided was reportedly known by Mckee to be false at the time of that it was submitted. Okay, so he's had this plan for a while then. If he purposefully lied about some information about purchasing the handgun, and it sounds like this may be the handgun that he purchased, he's purchasing it across country, kind of similar to Brian Koberger purchasing his weapon, but Brian Koberger, also Brian Koberger purchased it in his own town. I think old boy was staying in Vegas, Nevada for a while when he was part of his job. And so purchases a weapon across country, so it makes it more difficult to track. Man, feels like he's taking some pages out of the Koberger handbook here. The information provided was reportedly known by Mckee to be false at the time of it was submitted. This allegation aligns with information that surfaced yesterday regarding a Las Vegas medical malpractice lawsuit. Court record shows Mckee was never successful. He served because the address and phone numbers he provided were later determined to be invalid. I wonder if he was going to do something else. With this malpractice lawsuit that happened in Vegas, I wonder if he was going to try to take care of something beforehand. As for the murder charges, ATF would not make an arrest for homicide unless federal jurisdiction applied, where the case involved a specific federal crime tied to the killing. In most cases, murder charges are brought by the state and local prosecutors once investigators believe they have sufficient evidence to support probable cause. I do not know whether he will face charges related to this allegation or not. I also included more photos of Mckee in his younger years. That's it from True Crime. I need to check out her page. I think this is this Facebook? I think it is Facebook. Thank you for sending me that, Gene. I appreciate that. That's some good information I was not aware of. How stupid do you have to be to take tips from BK? Yeah, I don't know. Well, I think he was trying to learn from some of his mistakes, but made a tremendous amount on his own. I think he figured that if they asked him questions, looked at his phone where he was, and that he was at work the entire time, that he was going to be golden. So my thought earlier that maybe perhaps he had some suicidal ideations, that if he would have been, um, knocked on the door, if this would have happened in his house, maybe it would have ended differently, but I don't think that was his plan. I think his plan was to get away with this. That was not his plan to take himself out. This is me following the evidence. A lot of people ask me, why do I think one way or do this one way? I follow the evidence and I follow what comes out, and I don't stick to one narrative. Now once the picture's pretty clear and things become very difficult you know to go against that clear picture, that becomes a different story then on its own as well. But as information comes out, I follow the evidence. I don't stick to a narrative. And so, my thoughts were maybe perhaps he was like, F it, I'm going to hurt myself. I'm going to go take out some people with me at the same time. And, when they come knocking on the door, there's going to be some more that are going to go before I go. Maybe that's what he was thinking. I don't think that anymore, based on this information here. And again, you ask, why is it aggravated? Why did it get enhanced? Here it is. A lot of calculation. But a 400 mile trip. I wonder how many times he'd been out there, and it's just crazy. I know that there was somebody that tried to get into the house a couple of streets down the way. Was that him? Somebody called 911. Somebody was trying to get into the home, like within walking distance. Did he get the wrong house? Was that his plan to knock on the door and have them open, and he was just going to open fire and take off, but found an unlocked door and was able to make entry? I think that may have been a possibility there. As the information and the evidence comes in, this picture is going to get cleared up, and we're going to continue to talk about this case. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. Let's see. I'm going to do this for another probably about 3-4 minutes, guys. If you have any questions, put a couple of stars. But yeah, I think this guy thought he was going to get away with this. I think we're going to find out that he was looking up other cases of how people may have gotten caught, what captured him. I think maybe he was aware of some of these true crime cases to a certain extent. Now, I know he's a doctor, so time's probably limited, but I wouldn't be surprised, if he was aware of some of these other cases and how some of these folks got caught, and tried to minimize those things by leaving his phone somewhere, like at work. Now, at the hospital, there's a lot of cameras there. So this is going to get him on camera, leaving there into his vehicle and then getting back. There's no way he's not on camera doing that. This guy's an idiot. I don't know. This guy's an absolute idiot. Please hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. You guys know what to do. Let's see. Let me put this back over here so I can read the bigger screen. Let's see. Hi, Dan. What's the story with the Steelers? I'm heartbroken. I was there. I was disgusted. But you know what? There's light at the end of the tunnel. I respect Coach Tomlin. I thought he did a great job his tenure with the Steelers. I don't have anything negative to say about him in that aspect at all. I thought he was a great coach. I just think that, in time, as long as, with everybody else, time comes for everyone. And sometimes the message gets stale. Andy Reid needed a change of location. And I think when Coach Tomlin picks up the clipboard again, I think he's going to be a really good coach somewhere else. But I think the Steelers needed a shakeup, and I'm glad they got it. Let's see. But yeah, I don't think this guy wanted to get caught. He seemed very comfortable walking in the alley, not like the first time. It's true. I mean, I think he was aware of the cameras. He looks down, looks up, and he's walking funny. And I think he's doing it on purpose. No common sense, nah. And it could be just the narcissism is so real and so big, like he thinks, they're going to ask me, I got an alibi, I'm going to be here. It doesn't matter what else they're going to say. They got no case. And so he doesn't think out any other part of his trip. The fact that he's traveling 400 miles and there's cameras and everything else in between there. This guy's an absolute tool. He's an idiot. Absolute tool. Go Seahawks. Yeah. You know, I'll be honest. I outside of the 49ers, and the only reason I'm not going for the 49ers is because, you know, they got 5 Super Bowls already. Steelers got 6. I'm hoping the NFC team wins it. You know, I'm not a fan of well, see, if the Patriots win, then they get more Super Bowls than the Steelers, and I wouldn't like that. The Broncos, my one of my best friends is a Broncos fan, and so I don't want to hear it. The Texans, you know, I don't really have anything against the Texans, even though they just beat the Steelers. You know, they played good. I just don't think they're going to get there. You know, I think that they played a Steelers team that was offensively horrible, and they were going up a really good defense. I think a better offense against them. They, you know, and if CJ Stroud puts the ball up like that again, I think a better team will probably beat them. You know, Buffalo, and they can, you know, I got nothing against Buffalo. Their fans are crazy. They jump through tables that are on fire, you know, so that's entertaining. But yeah, you know, but in the end, I'm probably, you know, watch, and as long as it's not like a team that's going to overtake the Steelers in Super Bowl wins, I really don't care. So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens. Texans is all defense. Yeah. Go Bills. Everybody Buffalo. Yeah, I got nothing against Buffalo. Buffalo's good. Oh, the Bears. The Bears, that would be interesting. That would be interesting. If the Bears made it all the way. You know, I got nothing against them either. You know, if it was you know, Lamar, if there was, you know, Patrick Mahomes, now those teams, I probably would be like, man, I'm really, really rooting against the other teams. But at this point, not so much. Even the team that beat the Steelers, you know, kind of thank you guys, because we're moving on finally. Well, guys, that's going to do it for me tonight. I want to say thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. I'll be back on tomorrow night. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, ring that notification bell. I'll see you guys then. Peace out, y'all. Bye.